Tell them what time it is.
Welcome, everyone, to this special edition of the After Action Podcast. I'm joined today by the king of horses,
You filming?
the king of the rodeo,
Is it recording?
the emperor of riding in the saddle,
Is the red light blinking?
himself, Dale Brisby, America's cowboy, the best cowboy.
Here we go, sir.
I was telling you earlier, when you go to a rodeo, as a rodeo cowboy, that is their party for the year. Yeah,
That's cowboy,
no
dude.
kidding. Those are the two fundamentals. If you buck off a saddle bronc horse, you either weren't lifting or you weren't staying back.
My phone rings and it goes, Marcus Luttrell. And then I answer it and I go, what's up? And he goes, Marine, whatever it is you're doing, can you please be better at it?
This ag teacher walks up to me. What you gonna do if all this ends? And I said, what are you gonna do if what you're doing ends?
Yeah.
Kids will ask you for your autograph. You might have bucked off.
Yeah.
Not Dale Brisby, of course.
This episode was sponsored by Medical. Every veteran deserves respect, competency, and clarity when pursuing a disability claim. Of course, we all know the frustration is much more common. If you're looking for a better path and documentation that strengthens your disability rating request, start with our sponsor, Medical. Re's team of professionals work with a network of experienced physicians, and they've already provided meaningful medical evidence for more than 25,000 veterans. And while they can't guarantee what the VA will decide, 95%, let me say that again, 95% of their clients reported receiving a disability rating of 70% or higher. That's because when you connect with Medical, they take the time to explain your options before you pay for anything. Free consultations. So don't give up on a stalled process or settle for an unfavorable decision from the VA. Cut through the frustration with accurate medical evidence and a streamlined approach that allows you to pursue your claim confidently. Head over to remedical.com, that's Romeo Echo Echo medical.com to book your free consultation. Check out our link in the podcast section for more details. Welcome, everyone, to this special edition of the After Action Podcast. I'm joined today by the king of horses, the king of the rodeo, the emperor of riding in the saddle himself, Dale Brisby, America's cowboy, the best cowboy.
The world's greatest bull rider, as well as the most humble.
And that's what makes you so special. There's so many things that make you special. I couldn't even count or list all of them, but I do know that I'm very honored and privileged to have been down here to your world, and I'm contemplating not leaving.
Well, you know, I appreciate you rolling out the red carpet, and I'll forgive you for not having a green room with a veggie tray out for me, even though I don't eat vegetables, but it does make me feel important having it there.
Yeah, let me make a note real. Can we?
Yeah, we'll talk. Yeah, if you want to.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed. No, I can't thank you enough having me out here to your ranch, and just everyone's been so kind. It's, you know, I go to Texas a lot, like more than most people. The only person who goes to Texas more than me might be Sam Houston. It was a Tennessean who founded Texas, I believe. Is that true?
I think he was here maybe when it happened.
Didn't he do a bunch of? He came down from Tennessee.
Yeah, no, we got a statue of him. There's Sam Houston State University.
Yeah, I mean he came to show y'all how to be what y'all are. But no,
he did a lot for us.
He did.
We'll agree to that.
We'll agree to that.
Yeah.
Founded by Tennessean, but the real UT.
Right.
But I haven't had this experience in Texas. I've been all over the state. Mainly San Antonio is where I go the most, you know, for my work with I'm doing down there, which is fine, but it's completely different than this. This is like when I think of Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm gonna think of this now.
Yeah. No, this is so this is, if you pull it up on Snapchat and you cross the filter, it's West Texas.
Okay.
So I grew up in a town called Memphis, which is in the Panhandle in between Amarillo and Childress.
Okay.
But I'm west enough that I'm West Texas. North Texas is actually like north of Dallas-Fort Worth, if that makes sense. That's what we consider North Texas.
Okay.
East Texas would be east of I-35, and South Texas is down close to, you're getting down to San Antonio would be South Texas.
San Antonio, like Austin area, is that considered?
San Antonio and further down. Austin is more Central Texas, we call. So I consider this West Texas.
Okay.
I'm on the edge of it, though. So I'm getting closer into like central, north, but it's kind of crazy because West Texas goes up above North Texas in a way on the map. But the West is not a place. It's an attitude. It's an attitude here is West Texas.
It's an attitude.
And we are currently in Winnebago. So I had Zach on my podcast earlier and Rodeo Time podcast and invited him on because I'm a huge fan of all things military. And so, yeah, that's where we're at right now, Winnebago.
No, I love it. I ate this morning at the Bobcat Cafe, drove in with some of your guys from Love Field, and, like, I'm always excited when the hype is real. Does that make sense? Like, when things live up to it, because I had in my mind, I mean, because you've done so many things, we're going to get into it. You know, you beat up Cameron Haynes. That's what you said on the Keep Hammering.
Yes.
You then armbar Joe Rogan. I mean, you've done it all. You took over Netflix. I mean, come on.
Dale, yeah.
Yeah.
There's 3 other Texans that I've run around with that you've probably crossed paths with. Number 1 being Dakota Meyer, fellow Marine.
Yep.
He's in now in New Braunfels area.
Is he?
Or Austin area.
Okay,
Austin,
I knew he's
New Braunfels,
somewhere outside of
Same
Austin.
thing
Yeah.
in my mind. Tim Kennedy.
Yep.
Hangs out with Dakota. He's Green Beret. And then Marcus Luttrell, who's in East Texas. So
we talked about this a little bit on your podcast, but I was wondering, do you get the phone calls from him where he just like gives you like an order and hangs up?
Yes.
It's so incredible.
It's the most intense 2 minutes of your life, of that week at least. Yeah. Just call and check in, and then when it is time for him to get off the phone, he's getting off the phone. That's one thing that I am jealous of the man for, like, that he can exit a conversation and still maintain the people in that conversation's respect, you know? Like, because I feel like sometimes I'll get trapped, and I end up sitting there talking to somebody that I'm not really that excited about, but I'll just stand there. Marcus doesn't do that.
No, he doesn't. I thought he messed up or like hung up the phone on accident the first time it happened to me.
Did you call him back?
I did.
Please tell me.
I did. So I was here's my Marcus Luttrell story. So I was in the gym and for some reason he felt a disturbance in the force, and I just didn't feel. I had a malaise about me, a melancholy. You know, like you know what I think? It's like a Wednesday or a Thursday. We're not there yet. I'm kind of you're trying to hit the downslope towards the weekend, and like my phone rings and it goes Marcus Luttrell. And my first thought was, that's pretty cool, right? And then I answer it and I go, what's up? And he goes, Marine, whatever it is you're doing, can you please be better at it? You've got to quit, stop, and just like starts like hitting me with these things of like, get out there, attack, take the hill, and like click. And then I was like, what? And I called him back and he goes, I hung up because I'm done talking. This was a check-in. I'll holler at you later. And he hangs up again.
That's hilarious.
And I was like, oh, okay. And it was literally like lightning hit me. Like, you know, it must have been what Lazarus felt when he came back.
Right.
Like I literally was just like superhuman.
The last one I had, I was on my way home from a booth, and it was Sunday, and we were driving back, and we had stopped in Amarillo. We were in the parking lot of Cavender's and just kind of stopped in there for a minute on our way home. And he called me, and I was like, all right, here we go. This is one of those phone calls.
Yeah.
And answered the phone. He's like, hey, Cowboy, you in church? And I was like, well, no, sir, I'm traveling. He's like, all right, well, that's an okay excuse this time. Get back in church. He said, also, what are you doing? I told him what I was doing. He's like, get back home, see your family, see your friends. But you need to take those mornings for yourself. Get your ass up early in the morning, and that's your alone time. That's when you get the day right, and get it going then early in the morning. And I said, yes, sir. And then he said 1 or 2 other things and got off the phone. But I was like,
I feel like crying right now.
what a great, like just a good reminder. And thankfully, I'm a morning person.
Yes, you are.
And
yes, you are.
To be honest, like sometimes I'll wake up at 3:30 and I'll think, all right, this is too early. And I'll lay there till 4.
Really?
That's what I did this morning.
Didn't seem that way when I came out. Again, I stayed here incredible. Like I showed my family. I was like, dude, I'm moving here. I swear. I'm going to start over. And the Dale B&B?
Right.
So I came out and I was like, I don't want to be too loud. I'm going to go in the gym. It's snowing back home. I just want to just get loose, right? And then I see this gorgeous ponytailed man, looks like corrugated steel, just ripped up, running outside. And I was like, is that DB? Is that him? And I come inside and you're like, oh, get in the cold plunge. And the second you said it, my first thought was, I'm going to have to do it now. Like I didn't want to do it at all, but I did, and got that and some sauna time in, and, woke up refreshed, and not woke up, started the day running.
Yeah.
And it is something, especially when you have kids and this is a father and entrepreneur, things never stop. But like that morning time to really set your day, it's the coolest
everybody's
thing.
asleep.
Yeah, but it's the coolest thing I have now in the life I live now, because everything else you're like, I got to get to work.
Yep. And
I would still do it, but not the way I do it now. Like I take time preparing my meals. Like you said it, you're like, I got to drop my kids off. And I'm like, I do that too. Like,
yeah,
that's my priority. I take them, I spend time with them, I get them on their day, I get started, and then you get to do these other things afterwards. And it does feel like, oh, we're doing something now.
Yeah. Yeah. So my little morning, it's just everybody's asleep.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to call you. Nobody's going to interrupt you. There's no deadlines. You can send the email literally 2 hours later. It's still going to get there before they wake up.
Yep.
And so it's just a good way to set the day. And I love it. I absolutely love my mornings. I'm just, like when I was rodeoing, I was telling you earlier, when you go to a rodeo, as a rodeo cowboy, this weekend, if I were going to go to 3, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I'm going to go to 3 different towns, and essentially each of those towns, that is their party for the year. And the whole town shows up. Maybe they have a concert, and they host these rodeo cowboys, and you're kind of the celebrity of if you're entered, kids will ask you for your autograph. You might have bucked off.
Yeah.
Not Dale Brisby, of course.
Not
DB.
else.
An average man may have bucked off. Well, you're a celebrity there, and they carry you out on their shoulders. So anyhow, it's a party.
Yeah.
And there's a beer tent afterwards. But for me, and I enjoy hanging out with the locals 100%. I enjoy that. But for me, the party was always like, between the national anthem and the closing time, the song.
Yeah.
And at the end of the rodeo, the smell of the arena, the actual getting on the broncs, getting on the bulls, the fight, the camaraderie with your buddies, and I enjoyed hanging out after. But the nightlife was never really something that grabbed me.
Yeah.
I'm usually going to bed, and then I'm going to wake up early in the morning time. Maybe that was being raised by a cowboy, but I've always been a morning person.
I was going to ask that. When did that set in for you? Was it just at a young age where you're like, the morning's mine, the morning stales, or just because you're...
Man, watching my dad, like so we grew up here in Texas, and grew up on small place outside of Memphis, Texas, and we managed a ranch that was a little bit bigger, was a lot bigger than our place, and ran a bunch of cows for a guy. And my dad he was a workaholic, and in this line of work, it's all, usually from the neck down kind of work. I mean, you got to be smart, and you've got to know a lot about cows, and you've got to know how to budget and run a business, but usually you're horseback or you're fixing fence. And so I got to watch my dad break his back for his family. And I always wanted to be just like that man. And I remember in high school, I'd gone to this quarterback camp at Hardin Simmons, and the head football coach pulled me off to the side, and he was explaining to me about my throw and my delivery on my passing, whatever. Well, I go home, and then we start two-a-days, and I'm a sophomore in high school. And we started two-a-days, and I'm playing, I'm throwing, and, whatever, working out. And I walk over. He was also the ag teacher, my dad. So I walk over to his ag shop, and he had been watching me on the field. And he pulls me off to the side in his ag shop, and he starts explaining to me how I need to change the delivery of my passing, the way I, was following through. And it was the exact same way that this head coach at Hardin Simmons University had explained it, unbeknownst to him. Whatever. The point is, as a freshman, sophomore in high school, and this is just, he's a cowboy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he was just watching me, and it was an epiphany I had in my dad's ag shop. He's wearing denim on denim with a cowboy hat and saying, and I was like, this guy knows way more than I've ever given him credit for. And I mean, it was a switch. And from that point forward, that would have been, so for the next 15 years, yeah, it would have been about 15 years later that he passed. But for those 15 years, I was soaked up every single thing that he told me. I remember one time we were out in a pasture and he was talking about cows. And I literally just pulled out a pen and I would take notes as if I was going to class on what my dad said.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to be that man. And he never drank. I think I'd seen him drink maybe 4 margaritas in my life.
Yeah.
And he just worked hard, was a man of God, a man of faith, was a tough cowboy. And, he was funny, but I got that side, my comedic, what little comedy I have in my life, I got from my mom. But yeah, my dad was, and then fast forward, he ended up passing away in a rodeo arena. Mm-hmm. And so like it just set in my blood, like I'm a rodeo cowboy, as if it wasn't already.
Yeah.
But anyhow, that's where that came from. Long story short, I guess why I'm a morning person.
Well, that's so remarkable. Not just that he was that way, but that you had the awareness to be like, oh, wow, this guy knows stuff. I keep hoping that my daughters will be like, I mean, there's not a lot of stuff I know, but like I always say, like, take advantage of what me and your mom know because we had to wing it for so long. But it's really incredible. You're like, oh, what he does know what he's saying. Like,
and I have told so many young kids and men that I've observed, especially the ones that I can see being slightly disrespectful or just like rolling their eyes, just like, man, I got one of my best friends, Dusty Burson. He's one of 3 brothers. It's Dusty, True, Zach Burson. Anyways, their dad's name is Brian. And he actually was friends with my dad, went to college with him. They were both ag teachers. But this man looks, walks, talks just like my dad. And the first time I saw him after my dad passed, I actually got choked up and had to walk away. But every time I see those guys, they love their dad, but I just like, dude, you got to cherish every dang word this man says to you because there'll come a day, and I can just think of a dozen friends I have that I'm just like constantly reminding them, like, but even young people, like, look, you got to listen to this person in your life, Some people don't need to listen to their parents, but
I think they know. But I always say, like, why not see what they got, Like I would have loved more of that growing up. So I'm always like, like when I'm with my daughters, I'm like, this is how you change oil, whatever. I don't care. All right, well, but then they'll be like, hey, can you show me again? They just don't want to admit that, like, we're doing stuff like that. It's fun because, like, I don't have a lot of, like, normal, I would say not a lot of normal, like, I'm like, hey, let me show you how to do cami paint. Like that.
You're right.
That's not going to work. But like the things I do teach them, I'm really big on like teaching them everything they can to be independent and successful.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this might happen. Let's hope for the best, plan for the worst type stuff.
Right.
Especially in the way the world is right now,
No kidding.
Yeah. And it's tough. But that stuff takes time. But I'm preaching to the choir. You know all this. As a father, that's the one thing I'm always thinking about. Like, I'm like, okay, did I do this? I do that. Is there enough gas in the wife's car? Like, whatever. I'm always doing that like bucket list, and now when I'm getting ready to drive, the other one not far behind, it's just gets my heart shaking a little bit.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's fun stuff. But so you were in high school. When did you start? So you're quarterbacking, huh?
Yeah, I mean, little 1A small town.
That's still good.
But
they didn't ask me to do it, so like, you should be proud of it. Be proud of it.
I mean, it was fun. I loved it. I loved football. Like
varsity blues type stuff is really what I think in my head.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I mean, in every town in Texas, it's like that. So
it's incredible. I've never seen anything like it. Like the stadiums I see here are bigger than most colleges, and they're just regular, normal high schools. Like not anything crazy, just a normal high school. I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, I feel bad because my town was that passionate, but I just wasn't that good of a quarterback. But anyhow.
You're out there taking snaps. That's all that counts.
We never lost. We would just run out of time.
I like that. Is that a shirt? You should make that a shirt.
If it isn't, it ought to be.
It ought to be. Well, when did you start like riding broncs? What was that first experience like?
I mean, I got on some bulls and broncs whenever I was younger. And then the high school sports took over, but really the summer times were when rodeo, that's what, the summer times revolved around, was rodeo. And then college, I really started, I did everything. Like in college, I did all 3 rough stock events. Well, let me back up. In the rodeo arena, there's 8 events.
Okay.
And it's divided up into 2 ends of the arena. You've got timed event on one end and rough stock on the other. Timed event would be like your team roping, calf roping, barrel racing, steer wrestling.
Okay.
So those are your excuse me. Those are your timed, you're on a horse, and when you complete the task, the time stops. So the fastest time wins.
Okay. It's the same task, I would assume, everyone?
Well, barrel racing, you're race,
I mean,
and then the calf roping, you're trying to tie a calf down, in 7 seconds, 8 seconds. Team roping, when you both get the steer caught, steer wrestling, you turn them over. Those are all timed events that involve horses that are broke, and you own the horses.
Okay.
Rough stock is the other end of the arena, and that's where you get on a bucking animal, and you've got to ride for 8 seconds. That's what we call those, like a bareback riding. Bareback riding is one event, and that's usually what they start the rodeo with.
What are you holding on to? Bareback is nothing, right?
Well, it's not nothing, but it's not much.
Okay.
So it's essentially, you've got like a big leather pad that's, you cinch down on the horse, and then on top of that leather pad is a rawhide handle shaped like a suitcase handle.
Okay.
Turned up and down parallel with the horse.
Okay, that's the...
Right in the middle, yes. And so that's bareback.
Why am I'm starting to get sweaty. Yeah.
Because that one is definitely the most intense.
Yeah.
Out of everything in the arena you can do, bareback riding is maybe the scariest.
On a bronc or a bull?
On a bronc.
Okay, on a bronc. And you can only do it on a bronc, or can you do it on a bull?
Bareback? No, the bull riding is different.
Okay.
But bareback riding is what they start the rodeo with. It looks very violent.
It looks awesome.
At some points, the only thing touching the horse would be that hand in the handle. And so it can be jarring. It can like really rattle your cage. It's not as rough as it looks, but it is rough. So that's bareback. Saddle bronc is bucking horses also, but you've got a saddle on the horse. It doesn't have a horn on it.
Okay.
And it's a little different than what you would ride like a ranch horse in, like a broke horse. If you and I were just going to go grab something out of my tack room, this saddle is the tree is very similar. So the actual foundation of the saddle is similar, but regardless, saddle bronc, you're sitting in a saddle, you're holding onto a bronc rein, which is attached to their halter, and then you're spurring, trying to keep in motion with that horse's rhythm as he bucks.
Okay.
Also,
That's how you counteract not getting like whiplash or whatever?
Correct.
Because you're kind of like riding, like leaning and pulling
yes,
back.
yes, exactly.
I think it was Rowdy was explaining to me.
Yep, on the spur board.
On the spur board.
Which is like a punching bag for our event.
Good, because I was punching it.
So with bronc riding, what you do to spur effectively is you lift on that bronc rein that comes from their halter. You're lifting, not pulling. This is a pull, this is a lift. So you lift up towards the sky, and then you drive your shoulders back. And those are the two fundamentals. If you buck off a saddle bronc horse, you either weren't lifting or you weren't staying back. So the problem with that is, the challenge of it is, your intuition, if you were to get on a bronc, your intuition is to pull and sit up. So what you do on that bronc fundamentally to ride him effectively is counterintuitive. So what you'll have to do is lift and stay back. But if you let your emotions take over, fear, well, then you're going to pull and sit up and you're going to get bucked off. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's the same type scenario in the bull riding, which is the third rough stock event. And the bull riding, you've got a rope. It's a bull rope that goes around and your hand is in that perpendicular to his back. And when that bull comes out, his front end jumps up. He's going to jump with his front end. And when he does that, to counterbalance that, you've got to go to the front. So you lean forward out over that hump.
Okay.
Understand?
Yeah, yes.
As his front
Otherwise, it
end's
would
coming up.
launch you back. Correct?
Well, that's what your intuition is going to want you to do. You're going to want to get back.
Because it's something coming at you.
Correct. But the reason he's jumping up in the front is because he's about to send his butt up in the air. So he's going to, and the horses do the same thing. They're going to come up in the front, and then when that front end drops, it allows them to really kick hard. And so if you're...
Okay, yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
So because of the way the saddle is, the fundamentals are different in bronc riding than it is bull riding. But the way they buck is similar. Regardless, the point is, to make a long story short, the fundamentals in rodeo are counterintuitive to what your mind would naturally tell you to do, because it's going to tell you to get away from a bull's head, not lean towards it. So you've got to be in control of your emotions. You've got to have that fear just really in control, if not eliminated. It'll never be completely gone unless you're just really, really, I don't want to say oblivious, but borderline oblivious to the dangers. You know, it's just more learning to control it. And so those 3 events are the 3 that you compete in at a rodeo, but there's 2 more things that you can do on the rough stock end.
Okay.
One being bullfighting. So the bullfighters are going to be who go in and protect that bull rider, distract the bull whenever the bull rider comes off, because he's kind of in a helpless position. He might land on his back, and that bull is going to turn around and try to come get him. So you've got 2 guys that are athletes in cleats that come in, distract the bull. Ideally, they get the bull away from the bull rider, and then they walk away without getting hooked also. But sometimes, if that gap is real small, they'll step in the middle of it and take a hit for that bull rider. The good ones will.
That's their whole job?
Yes. And
wow.
Sometimes it pays as little as $200 a night. So that's the bullfighter. That's job number. That's a job that you're paid to do.
And that's a competitive event. Being
the bullfighter.
Yeah,
it can be. They'll set up, but most of the time, if you're at a regular rodeo, that bullfighter is 1099. He's getting paid to be there.
Okay.
There are certain events that you can do that we can talk about, but so that's job number 4. Job number 5 on the rough stock end is the pickup man, and he's going to be horseback during the bucking horse events. And when that bronc rider or bareback rider gets done competing after the 8 seconds, he'll ride in next to him, and he'll pick that cowboy up and take him and set him down to safety. The horses aren't aggressive, so there's no need to distract them, but they're traveling fast and they're really high off the ground, and it gets really dangerous for a cowboy to just jump off.
Yeah.
And so that pickup man will go in. There'll be one on either side, ideally, depending on the situation, unless he's against some fence, and then you'll jump off on the back of that cowboy's cantle, the pickup man's the back of his saddle, and then hopefully all the way over to safety, and that bronc will go the other way. That's what my dad was doing when he passed away. He was a pickup man. But growing
Passed
up,
away, like in the rodeo, literally.
yeah, he had a heart attack.
Loved it.
Yeah, that's where he was.
Honestly,
Yeah, no kidding. Exactly.
beautiful.
Probably the way that you probably feel a lot about your comrades. You know,
If you have to go,
you had to choose it.
if you had to choose how to
if
go,
you had to go.
that's going out on your sword.
1,000%. So much peace wrapped up in it.
You see, especially when the other options are, how about a hospital?
No kidding. Yeah, I had a friend whose dad died during COVID. Like nobody around him, like in the hospital. Like it was just terrible.
Yeah, beep.
Terrible.
And I've worked in hospitals and we talked about it. It's not great. But man, that's Cowboy, dude.
No kidding.
That is Cowboy.
Doctor said he was dead before he left the saddle. But so those 5 things, the bareback, saddle bronc, bull riding, bullfighting, and pickup man, those 5 things are what me, my family, my brother, my uncles, we have spent our entire life on that end of the arena. So my dad was a really good team roper on the timed event end.
Mm-hmm.
And like he could team rope really well. I've done it, like I've probably ran in my lifetime 50 steers out of a box.
Okay.
But my life has been spent on the roughy end, the rough stock end of the arena. And which is neither here nor there. That's just like, for instance, my interns that come to work here when they want to, they'll work for me, and I've got a practice pen where they can get on bulls or broncs. Once they decide they don't want to ride bulls, which will happen often, and like, I'd like to try steer wrestling or team roping. I was like, okay, that's great. I can't help you with that. You have to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, like I can maybe if you knew nothing about it, I could maybe give you the fundamentals to. Well, it's not necessarily that they're banished. That's just not.
I understand. It'd be funny if you're like, you're out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so there's other people out there that know enough about. But for me, the fight, I call it fight, you know, with respect to what you call fight. But
my heart's racing though as you're describing it. Like
when you are sitting in that buck and chute, and you're about to nod.
Yeah.
And I tell this, if the listeners out there have heard me talk about this, I've said it so many times because I love the analogy. But you might be familiar with him. But DJ Shipley,
yes,
he's a
Navy SEAL.
6.
Yeah, I think is he on that show, or am I getting him confused with someone else?
He's not on a show.
I'm
Him
getting
and
confused with someone else.
Cole Fackler have a GBRS group.
Yes, that's what it's coming from. Yeah.
Yep. And anyway, he and I were talking at the Danny Dietz Memorial. They bucked some bulls and broncs, and we were behind the chutes, and he was watching it and appreciating, you know, what bull riders go through. And he said, and you can probably attest to this as well, but 95% of the rooms that he went in were benign.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but you've got, so I looked up what benign meant.
Yeah.
And he meant empty.
Yeah.
And so like 95% of those rooms,
yeah,
there's nothing.
Yeah.
You've got to be ready for the fight though.
Yeah.
And the fundamentals in case it's the 5% of the time. And he, you know, was acknowledging that as rodeo cowboys, 100% of the time when we nod, there will be a fight. And we have to be ready for it 100% of the time. Matter of fact, if they don't fight hard enough, we get what's called a re-ride. And so
the animal, if it doesn't give you
correct. Yeah. So like if there's 10 of us, if there's 10 of us entered, and it like let's say we're all getting on bulls tonight and 9 buck, and then I get on one that dinks off and just runs off. Well, they want to give me a fair shake at actually winning some money that night.
Okay, that does.
So they're
going to
run me. They're going to give me a re-ride and run me in another bull because that one didn't perform to the level of the other 9. But my point is like you've got to be ready for the fight every time. And what happens is it shows when you're not, and because when you're not ready for the fight, either you're asleep mentally or maybe your emotions took control of you, the pressure, you're distracted, you're scared of maybe this animal like broke somebody's arm or has bucked off the last 10 guys or whatever. Essentially, if you let those emotions take control, you won't be able to execute the fundamentals that we talked about.
Yeah. Muscle
so
memory.
The same thing could happen. Like, you know, you said your second deployment was so much more intense than the first. Like, well, shoot, if literally your buddy may have gotten shot in this exact same position that you're now holding because of this one side that's more vulnerable, maybe that affects your fundamentals. But if, you know, and instead of like leaning into something where you lean back and now you're playing defense, it could leave you more vulnerable. Same thing with rodeo. The difference is the stakes are much higher with you guys.
I don't know. They feel pretty high to me because like what I have noticed in the small amount of time that I've done research here and looked into all this stuff, one, I am naturally drawn. I don't know if I've always been this way, but definitely post-military service. I'm naturally drawn to people who look at that razor's edge of life and death and find a way to walk it because you just feel alive. There's no other way to describe it. And until you've pushed yourself to the absolute limit, you know, and whatever, and there's baby steps you can do to actually push yourself, like, you know, many different jobs, many different career fields. But like if you're doing something that's putting yourself at risk and you're doing things to mitigate that best you can, like there's something very powerful about being like, oh, here we go. Like you're in the chute, right? Getting ready.
The chute, yes, sir.
You're in the chute. Like I can equate that to being on the back of a helicopter. Like to this day, I bet this happens with you. Do you know the sound a chute makes when it opens?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's like if you
Does it
watch
make
my
your-
videos.
Yeah, does it make your heart race?
So like absolutely.
Helicopters. I hear a helicopter.
Or
my
like
heart starts
if
racing.
once a horse will kick the back of the chute, and
Yeah.
it's like it's on. You know.
It's muscle memory. Like there's
Yeah.
these little things. Every time I hear a helicopter, I think, oh, I'm about to get out of the helicopter. No, I'm not. I don't do that anymore. But I can hear it. I'm go, oh, like, and all guys look up to him anyways. But I'm always like, oh, there's something there.
Yeah.
Like
What about a gunshot?
Crack or whiz. That's all that really matters. Like cracks over here, whiz is right here. As long as I don't hear a whiz, we're fine. But
I'm saying, does that get your?
not really. Just
Yeah,
it all
because you probably hear that so much.
it all depends on context. What's weird is when you're like, if I'm in Texas, I expect.
I bet if it was like repeated, like
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that.
When I did an event at Fort Campbell, I heard a machine gun. I hadn't heard a machine gun in a long
Yeah,
time.
that one got you.
And it was a helicopter range, so they were dropping low and like doing like gun runs basically, and that was like, oh, I hadn't heard that noise in a while. That was, like everything in me like woke up a little bit.
Yeah.
But
I think one thing that you can probably relate to in a big way in this industry, especially bull riding, like no offense to team ropers, but like pretty much anybody can go do that, and easily you can see it's not easy to see if they really enjoy it or they don't, because they can go do it with no risk. But like bull riding or bronc riding or bareback or bullfighting is one of those things that there's a lot of people that like to say they are a bull rider, or they like to have ridden a bull or a bronc or fight them, but there's not as many that actually enjoy the act of it. And so like I can see like there's probably a lot of people that will like to have said they had been in a gunfight, but there's
Yes.
probably fewer that actually like, oh yeah,
yeah,
it's on.
Stolen valor apparently is in the rodeo world too. It's
Is that what that's called?
yeah, it's stolen valor. That's what it's referred to as. I believe you can get charged for it criminally as well.
What do you mean?
Like you can like face some type of like legit
If you what?
steal valor, and if it's associated. So the most recent biggest stolen valor story that I can think of right now is there was this lady who was she was a VA employee, and she had seen enough. It's called a DD-214, the document they give you when you leave.
Uh-huh.
And it literally goes first name, last name, middle. It even lists my campaigns, the medals I have, everything about me, and to the point to where that was printed and given to me. And she had seen enough of them where she created her own and did all sorts of stuff. And like all stolen valor cases, they always go big, which is dumb. That's how they get caught. They all get a Medal of Honor. They all get, a Silver Star. Those are hard things to get. For Dakota.
So, well, what was she using them for?
Oh, she was using it to get, so she got disability payments.
Oh, okay. So she's like,
So she got disability payments. She got a house. She got grants. She got all the, like, honestly, there was no end in sight. But eventually she got caught over something really ridiculous. Like she didn't type in like her social. She wrote it in, and someone's like, you don't handwrite socials on this printed document. It doesn't make sense. And I believe she caught charges over it.
Dang. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but like, and I'm pretty sure she only got charges because she got money, which is the thing they cared the most about. But
well, I
people
guess
do it a lot though, especially online. People lie a lot about their military service.
I bet it's way more in that than, and obviously there's more people in the military than there are bull riders, but like you see it at the bar.
It's the same thing. Yeah, like and my biggest problem with it is I don't really care. I don't really care what anyone did. There were jobs that I was not going to do, and I'm glad they did them. But the problem I have with it is when people use it as a way to kind of gain some sort of attention or notoriety.
Yeah.
What they're doing, honestly, is hurting every veteran that comes behind them. Because oftentimes the people that are lying about their service they're not doing things the best way in the first place. So that means that company won't hire veterans. That person won't like be, sympathetic or care about veteran military issues, because like every veteran they meet lies. And so it's kind of like a bad apple kind of ruins the bunch for people, if that makes sense. And I don't understand why people do it anyways. It's just weird.
Yeah.
It's very easy to prove.
Well, I don't know. I mean, for sure. And
I imagine the same way.
with bull riding, yeah, especially once you're on the rodeo grounds or in an arena, it's really easy to prove.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one thing about once that gate opens, it's such a pure moment that there's no more talk, there's no more anything. Like, can you execute? You know, can you execute the fundamentals? Can you do what it takes to ride the bull or spur the bronc, you know? And
Yeah. Open the gate.
yeah, but essentially though, that moment, like, you've just got to be in love with the fight, you know. And I think that's what makes a good rodeo cowboy, and that's probably what makes a good soldier.
I think so too. You have to want to like walk through the fire.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the white in his knuckle, the gold in his buckle.
Yeah,
He'll win the next go round.
there you go.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Even though my favorite song right now about cowboying is "Open the Gate" by Zach Bryan.
yeah.
It's, of course, I like anything Zach Bryan does, but so do most people. That's not.
Everybody does.
You know, he's a Navy veteran.
Yes, I did know that. I listened to his Joe Rogan.
Yeah, which is almost as good as your Joe Rogan, which we're going to get to. I want the specifics of it because I like the idea. But so you've been rodeoing for a while. You're doing it through college. You're picking up. Also, something I love how you say, like, you're the celebrity when you come into the town with the rodeos. It's the idea I've just realized is I feel like you'll have such a strong connection to the community because you're being supported directly by them, right? And that seems to me to make the most sense of, like, why they're so excited you're there, because they're like, you're here because of us. We want you here carrying on this tradition. Do you feel like that's true, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very focused group of our demographic. Obviously, you know what you're walking into when you head to a rodeo arena, or you have some idea, but essentially the heart of rodeo is what's called a rodeo committee. And each of these little towns will have anywhere from 2 to 22 people who do all the legwork for months prior to the rodeo. They'll gather sponsors. They make sure the rodeo grounds are clean. They put together, you know, what the rodeo is going to look like. And then the next thing, what that rodeo committee will do, for instance, here close to us is a town called Graham. So in Graham, what the rodeo committee will do is hire a stock contractor. And the ones they use is Champion Rodeo Company, Bob Champion. He actually has a son named National and a daughter named Ima. So
Really?
yeah,
That's pretty legit.
National is maybe one of the handiest pickup men you'll ever meet. He can rope anything. Yeah. And
So much pressure with those names, though.
No kidding.
Glad to know they're holding on, though.
no kidding.
Yeah.
So anyways, so the rodeo committee in the town of Graham will call Bob, say, we want to put on a rodeo in March, and it'll be 3 days long. They put it on the books. They advertise it. That's another big committee thing. They'll advertise all over. They'll call Dale Brisby, tell him to post on Instagram.
Yeah.
And then these rodeo cowboys will come from all over the state. And, you know, there'll be 600, 700, 800 people in the stands to watch all those events that I described with probably some sort of band at the end. And it's just the most wholesome setting. And whether it's a small rodeo or big rodeo, big rodeos are great, but there's this certain level, and you can go to some backyard ones that'll have 100 people at them, and it just feels like home. Usually right before the bareback riding, you know, rodeo cowboys will show up about an hour before, so they can start getting stretched out, get their riding pants on, literally get all their gear out, find out what they've got drawn for the night, talk to whoever about it, pay their entry fees, and then, you know, they got the lights dimmed, and especially in those coliseums, and they drug the arena. Probably it's real nice and clean. They pulled a tractor in there and they drug that arena. And right before the bareback ride, right before the national anthem, you know, I'll go out in the arena, and you that freshly dug drug arena has a certain smell to it. And I've always wanted to make it like a damn candle or something, just a rodeo time candle, kind of like leather, but not. It'd be freshly dug arena dirt. So it'd be a dirt scented candle. However, there's just something about it. When I was a kid, me and my dad were pushing some cows down this fence, and they were following the trail pretty good, and somebody was off to our left, but me and my dad were right beside each other against this fence was on our right, and they went down into a creek, and they came up the other side, and we went down into that creek. I just remember it like it was yesterday. He was like, it smells like a fresh dug arena. And it's the only time I can recall him ever really acknowledging it, but it was like, it just instantly, we're out in the middle of this pasture miles from any town. And he just like, it took him. And I remember that as a kid. And so now anytime I'm in an arena, because there's a certain, if it's the temperature or the wind or rain or wet, or, there's sometimes you don't smell, it's got this certain, anyway.
Dude, I'm there. I'm right here with you.
And so that's that moment at the beginning. And then the rodeo kicks off with the bareback and all the events just happen right in a row. And the crowds come from all over. Some people, it'll be their first. Some people, they've been coming to that same rodeo for 40 years, There's just no telling. But that is down home America. And I don't know, that's the sport that my life has revolved around my entire life. And so that's what created the Netflix show, the YouTube show, the 8 employees I have that are interns.
Yeah.
They're here to learn that.
Yeah. Hope you guys are enjoying the episode. If you want to continue to hear more stories like this and to help us grow the podcast, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and to also drop a rating and review. Every bit helps. Thank you so much. Now let's get back to the episode. Well, and you've been such a good evangelist for this world, right? And it started, and you saw the path. It started with your phone, right? What was your first? Because as you're a real creator, I'm creator light. Like, and what I mean is that, like, I'm barely stretching my wings in the sense of like editing videos and stuff. It takes time to understand all that, because I have a template and I'm just like, I do that over and over again. Yeah. But the boundaries I've been able to push lately, like with this podcast and other things, have been fun because, like, the God's honest truth is it terrifies me.
Yeah.
Right? Because, there are things you can make as a creator, like, that'll do well. You know what I mean? They're layups, But sometimes you take those new steps forward and it's hard. But what was the first thing you did and posted? And then what was the first thing that, like, really you're like, oh, there's some here? The legacy of Dale Brisby's.
Man, they were both the same thing.
Okay.
So I'd been prank calling people from 2010 to 2013. And then 2 months after my dad died, me, Weston Rakowski, Mitch Montgomery, were in Woodstown, New Jersey at a rodeo. And he turned on the camera and I made a video. And it went out July 1st, 2013.
Okay.
Like almost to the day, 2 months after my dad died, on YouTube. Okay. Yeah, it's still up. It's my first video.
Okay.
And it didn't go viral, but like in my circles, in the rodeo circles,
in your community,
everybody could relate to it.
Yeah.
It was a cocky bull rider who was talking about all these bulls that nobody had seen him ride.
Yeah.
And so from there, like, I've always been a salesman. I had a Facebook before that. Yeah. So like I'd already started, but like that was the first video. And Mitch was the one that posted it for me and gave me the login. And so that was my first YouTube, because I didn't know how to film or edit. Yeah. But I didn't make money on YouTube. I didn't monetize YouTube for a couple of years, but I did start an apparel company called Rodeo Time.
Yes.
And a big long story behind that. But the main thing is like, the salesman in me, like, man, I remember going on a school field trip in second grade when yo-yos were a big deal. Yep. And like selling yo-yos, and coming home with more money than I left with. And like, I've always been a salesman. I enjoy it. And so essentially what I realized, I also enjoy being a class clown making videos. Well, that was the branding behind the sales. So making content ended up being the framework that would help me be a salesman. And so I've always enjoyed, not only because essentially on paper I've got 2 companies here.
Yeah.
Rodeo Time Incorporated is the apparel company, and then the media company is a separate deal. But I enjoy them both. Yeah. If I had to pick one, it'd be the media company. I enjoy making the content. Yeah. The sales is work, but it's work that I enjoy. The media side doesn't even feel like work
because it's fun to create stuff. So, I don't think people realize how fun it is to create.
Yeah. And so that was 10 years and 6 months ago.
10 years and 6 months ago.
Yeah. So July 1st, 2013. So
you just keep pumping them out.
And then we just kept going. And then that's why, like, there was somebody Donnie always says this, like somebody at a booth about a year ago came by and like, man, he sure blew up overnight or something like that. And it was like really close to our 10-year mark.
Yeah.
And it was like, and then like same thing, like, man, all of a sudden you're on Rogan. And I was like, well, that was 10 years and 4 months later after we started. Actually, I had started 3 years before that. So it's actually been 13 and a half years since I first started anything.
Mm-hmm.
And, but anyhow, I'm not saying I deserve Rogan. I'm not saying I deserved anything. All I'm saying is like, it has been a long road. I've enjoyed every second of it. If it ended tomorrow, I would not be the guy that had wished I hadn't taken it for granted, because I have not taken anything for granted.
I think what people forget is that how much, or not forget, I think what people don't realize is how much genuine work goes into this.
Oh man,
like
you probably have it too. But like our friends that will call and be like on a Tuesday at 2 o'clock and be like, hey man, what are you doing? Come over here. They're like, no man, I'm working.
Well, I mean, it's not the worst, but what is interesting is like, you know, the range day that just happened recently. They're like, oh, you're hanging out with like Undertaker and stuff. I'm like, yeah, but like, like now I'm like planning like podcasts or like content.
Right.
Or, you know, I've got a call with sponsors and like other things, and it's not that it doesn't take away with it, but there's so much that goes into like the presentation, and so that's also what's so much fun about it is the work is, and what I have found can be a little too addicting is like I can pick this up and I can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an ion cannon. I can point it at whatever I want and engage. And that's what's dangerous about it too, because I've got like you were talking about the morning time. I've got an email, I've got a DM, I've got a text, and I have to separate. Like if I'm home and my girls are all right in front of me, I honestly try to put it in my room.
Yeah, you put it to the side.
And and then I'm like, oh no, I want to take a picture of it. So, but that's what the wife's always there doing that, covering that down. But it's just interesting because I think what's happened post pandemic is there's so much more attention online. Like those audiences that were with traditional media, they've turned away from it, in my opinion. And the views and all this stuff is reflected because turned away from that and they're looking at things like How to Cowboy, right?
Yeah.
On Netflix.
Right.
And but that happened because there's like, who's the world's most famous cowboy online? Dale Brisby.
There you go.
Right? Like what was it like? Walk me through Netflix, how that happens. So a production company comes to you, they DM you, or
100%.
Yeah, right.
That's I mean, I guess you've heard the story.
I've not heard
so like
the story.
A production company DM'd me, and
I have a little general idea about how entertainment works.
And that's kind of a funny story all in and of itself. I had production companies reach out to me before, none that were this caliber.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, these guys are legit. So like, I was like, yeah, let's work together. They put together a teaser for a potential show, Sizzle, shopped it around. A&E was super interested. There's all kinds of networks that I can't remember now.
A&E should have taken it.
Well, no, they wanted it.
Yeah.
There was a lot of companies like that wanted it. TNT, maybe. I can't remember all the acronyms now. There were a lot of TV shows.
Well, some of them have gone and some of them have collapsed. And,
right.
And like, there's like, now there's only 3 channels again. They still have streaming services.
The one that was kind of interesting, they didn't necessarily say, okay, we want it, but Funny or Die, Will Ferrell's.
Really?
Yeah.
They
talked to Facebook Watch. But anyways, Netflix came along. And
little company, little startup.
We were like, yeah, let's do that. And so we went that route and made the show. And they were like, all right, well, what show are we going to make? You know, these are interesting characters. And I was like, well, I get about 50 DMs a day of how do I get started ranching, or how do I get started rodeoing? And I had at the time a couple of interns, and I was like, that's what I do. And they were like, all right, well, that's what we got to film. We're going to film these interns learning this craft and this thing. And so that's what we did. Donnie and Jordan, who you met, they're still here.
Yeah, no, she's from the first episode.
Yeah. And so they were my interns, and Donnie's riding broncs, and Jordan's a girl bull rider. And so 6 episodes, you know, you walk them through their season, and it was pretty tough because we filmed it during COVID, you know, And we started, it wasn't, and then we filmed it during COVID, and that made a lot of things very complicated, not only in filming, but also in post-production. And it kind of disrupted a lot of things, and it was an unusual process than other shows that were being filmed either before that or even after. And so that
such a weird time.
Yeah, it was a weird time.
Yeah.
And so that made it weird for the show in general. There are some things that we didn't get to do, some other things that we wanted to do that just weren't even on the table. We weren't able to travel, for instance, go to a lot of rodeos. Thankfully, Texas was a little more lax than other states, but regardless, that hamstringed us a little bit, but it was fun, and we got to put the show out.
Yeah.
And
how did it feel? Like when you think about it as an abstract of like, wow,
man, one of the things that I had like a lot of negotiating and bargaining power with Netflix, because like I don't think going into the negotiating they realized just how content I was with just being like a cowboy YouTuber. Like I live this small town, like my cost of living is very low. Like we talked about earlier, I don't necessarily, I try not to look at success through the lens of money. I'm not going to sell my soul. And so
the only thing I know you want is more land.
And really all I want is my neighbors.
Yeah.
And then whoever becomes my neighbor after that.
Yeah.
And whoever becomes, no, I'm just kidding.
No.
But essentially the point is I'm very content with my lifestyle, and I'm also not dumb. I know how, like if I'm able to do this Netflix deal, but there were some things I didn't necessarily want to budge on with the brand, and I didn't. And Netflix was great to work with, and it was, they were a fun company. But anyhow, whatever. Long story short, it wasn't that much different for me than everyday life, because like that's what I do every day is create content. And that's what we were doing during that show. Like I enjoyed it. I enjoyed every day. We had a great crew, a great showrunner, the snack guy, everything.
Crafty. Yeah.
And like everything was great. And then, but what was unusual or what was neat was we were still putting out YouTube videos, because we couldn't tell people we were filming it. They didn't want us to. People could tell we were filming something, but we never said, but we were still putting out our own YouTube videos. And we actually had our biggest month financially on YouTube at the time during the filming of the Netflix show, which was 5 days a week, all day. And so like in our spare time, we still had the biggest month on YouTube we'd ever had.
Just like put up a few things.
Meaning like, well, we were just working that hard.
Yeah.
After
you're already locked in filming, so it makes sense that you're like, we're here, grab another camera. Yeah.
Oh, no, it had to be completely separate.
Well, I know, but I mean, it makes sense that like you're already like you're in that mindset.
Yes,
of, like,
for sure.
You're shooting the show.
For
Okay,
sure.
just walk to the right, change your shirt, whatever it is you got to do.
For sure.
You might as
there
well.
was a lot of that.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, and then since then, Donnie's been here 5 years. This July, here in a few months, and man, we've just been hammering it out. Our YouTube that's my biggest passion, is like vlogs, podcasts. And it sounds simple, but just like putting together a really good episode. I call my vlogs Rodeo time. Had like 350 episodes. And this last one that just went out is doing really well. We put it out yesterday at noon, and it's 17 minutes of us just having a really good time, enjoying ourselves, and doing our best to entertain the audience, the citizens of Winnebago, I call them. And that's my passion. And that's what I've always been passionate about. Even as a kid, like there was nothing I loved more than making my mom laugh. And, it pissed my brother and my sister off, but like I just loved making that woman laugh. And that's essentially what we do as creators. For them to be interested, we have to be interesting. Yeah. And there's so many different things you can do. You can hold up a cardboard sign that has an interesting saying on it. You can be a comedian. You can, educate people on certain things. You can, whatever evokes emotion, whichever emotion you decide to choose.
Yeah.
And so that's what's fun for me. And I love doing that. And people, I was at a booth the other day, and I don't know if any of your listeners are familiar with the organization called the FFA, but Future Farmers of America is what it used to stand for. My dad being an ag teacher, I was in it, love it. And I take my booths to a lot of those conventions. So I was at Texas FFA convention. This ag teacher walks up to me and doesn't really understand the internet. I understand his job way more than he understands mine, being an ag teacher's son. And he kind of smirks and he's like, "What you going to do if all this ends?" And kind of looks over at me like this is a flash in the pan.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "What are you going to do if what you're doing ends?"
Yeah.
Because I know the power that your superintendent and your principal has over you. You could lose your job tomorrow.
Yeah.
Your program could be cut in half. If you're one of 2 ag teachers, you could be out on the street.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody with a job could lose their job tomorrow. Are they going to cut the internet off? Like, how's it going to cut off tomorrow for me? You know what I mean? And so now I'm also not arrogant to the fact that, like, if I become less interesting, they will be less interested. Or if I do something really dumb, I don't necessarily believe that all attention is good attention. Like, I think that a person, especially in my industry, with all these like laid back country folk, they will turn their kids off of Dale Brisby in a heartbeat if I betray, their values.
Yeah.
Not that I'm going to adopt their values just so I can keep their attention.
I think you're
but our values align, and so that works out.
I think we're speaking about turn them off. You're referring more to like clickbait, flash in the pan stuff, right? Because there are a few things.
Sellout.
Yeah, like remember there used to be shock jock radio, right?
Or like early on in YouTube, there'd be like a busty cleavage shot, and you click on it, and it's like something.
It's just a guy.
Not that I would click on it.
Yeah.
If you were to click on it, there'd be like something else. Like,
is that
what you're talking about?
Yeah, like there's stuff that's just made to get your attention, or like you're controversial just to do it. But there's no real value to it. That stuff's like potato chips for the brain. Like, it's here today, gone tomorrow. And it has
That's a really good point.
Has no real connection.
That's a good point.
And what I've noticed about you in particular is your audience is fervent because you're carrying forth the gospel of the rodeo world.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see it and I can feel it. Like, just the way people are around here, like they understand like how important this is, because just from what I've seen, like, you're the greatest advocate for the rodeo since the Luke Perry vehicle 8 Seconds, which honestly was the first movie I ever saw in theater. That's ironically enough. And I remember seeing it being like, that dude's such a dude.
Yeah.
Followed shortly after by the Troubadours acting. I
got to write that down.
The Troubadour in his movie, what is it called? Where he's a country music singer and he quits. It's gonna.
Oh, Pure Country?
Pure Country. I mean, what a film.
Dude, I'm so glad you said those. So I'm ashamed that these aren't on the list already. But like these walls in here, especially that white one.
Yeah.
So it's going to be all movie posters. I've got this wall in here, people. It's like, I don't know, is that 18 feet tall, maybe?
I'd say so.
18, 20 feet tall.
Something like that, yeah.
And it's probably a 30-foot wide room. And it's just white painted blank wall.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to do is, you see the E.T. and the Die Hard posters?
I love that.
It's going to be all movie posters, but nothing with text on it. So it can't be like in theaters now, movie poster. It's got to be a scene from the movie.
Just like a screenshot almost.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, screen grabs. That's what those are.
Yeah.
So I've got, dude.
It's funny. I didn't notice that till you said it, but now it makes more sense to me. The words would mess up the vibe.
Exactly. So right there, because when you saw that Die Hard poster, it's when he's in the air vent, and you quoted the line he says right there. Yeah.
Have some drinks.
Have some drink. It'll be fun.
It'll be fun, they said.
It puts you in that moment.
Yeah.
And it's more than just the movie poster. Mm-hmm. And so I've got 40 posters ordered that are all movie scenes. 40 of them, and they're going on that wall. Name a good movie.
Apocalypse Now.
Don't have that one.
Forrest Gump.
Got that one.
The Godfather. Any of the Godfathers.
I haven't seen The Godfather, so I didn't get that one.
You have to watch it.
I'm 1 for 3 on your list.
No, I mean, like I most of mine are like wartime movies, and I'm trying to get away from that. Saving Private Ryan.
Got
so
that
good.
one.
A really Major Payne. I like that movie a lot. Under Siege is a great movie. Bloodsport. I really
Bloodsport would be a good one.
Bloodsport's so good. You know, it's based off of a stolen valor story. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Frank Dukes allegedly is the guy it's based off of, and he was invited to a secret martial arts tournament, and he was the one who like went to Hollywood with that story, and they're like, whatever, and then he sold the rights to it, and that's what Bloodsport is. He also said he has like several medals, including the Medal of Honor, which no one can prove, and he's like, oh, that's because it was top secret. So, which isn't how it works. At
Right.
all. Yeah, but no, it's what's another good movie? I'm trying to think of movies that I can. You know, it's a great movie, and I never get tired of watching it. Tombstone.
Yep, got that one. Let me just read them off to you.
Go ahead.
Hear them. So obviously,
You have
I
Lonesome
got
Dove, not a movie.
Of course,
Yeah.
Lonesome Dove. Obviously, I've got E.T. and Die Hard there.
Mm-hmm.
The idea. I love E.T. So I've always had that the poster of E.T. in a wig. Like
Yeah.
I think that's hilarious.
Yeah.
And I think that was so. That movie was long before its time.
Long before we knew
That was
aliens were
brilliant.
real. Yeah.
And so, anyways, but the Die Hard one, I was watching that movie and he's crawling through the vent, and I'd be like, that'd be a cool poster. And that's what gave me the idea. But I got Die Hard, E.T., Dumb and Dumber,
Incredible.
Lonesome Dove, Rio Bravo. It's a John Wayne movie.
Okay.
Training Day, Gladiator, Man on Fire. I love those movies when they can sacrifice like that.
Man on Fire. Man on Fire is such a good movie.
Such a good movie.
Creasy, when she calls him Creasy Bear.
And he freaking just walks over to that cartel.
Yeah.
Dude, that's so gangster.
I mean, like when he's talking to the guy in the car and his hands tapes the thing, he's like, "You are running out of time." Like, and he just starts snipping his fingers off.
Dude, that is such a gangster movie.
He's making a masterpiece.
Braveheart,
Incredible.
another good, old school. The Other Guys, Tropic Thunder, another war movie you might like.
Love Tropic Thunder.
Saving Private Ryan, Roadhouse,
I'm worried about the new one, but yes, I love that one.
Urban Cowboy.
It's a good one, actually.
Of
Sad.
course, this
sad
one blow. I should have said this one first. Shawshank Redemption.
It's an incredible movie.
How often do you really notice a man's shoes? Have you ever seen Tucker and Dale versus Evil?
Maybe.
Man, I just lost some respect for you.
Yeah, I believe so. Aren't they in a cabin and they don't know what's happening?
Yep.
Yeah.
These college kids are killing themselves.
Yeah.
We have had a doozy of a day.
Yeah.
The Girl Next Door, Alicia Cuthbert.
Bro.
Had
me wrapped up
That's
for a
right.
minute.
No, yeah, you graduated in 06. You know that movie.
Yeah. So when we were overseas, we had DVDs, and then the first tour, there was DVDs. And so that was one of the most popular movies, old school, Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Yeah.
And The Sopranos had just come out. So we were watching all those.
So hot. And somebody said what? Hot? Her eyebrows are a different color than her. And I was like, yeah, but I mean, she was playing a porn star in that show, but anyhow, very classy way to depict a movie about a porn star, of a girl who not that I know, I don't, but I'm just saying, great movie.
Yeah, it's an incredible movie.
Jaws.
Incredible movie based
Fight
on
Club.
a true story. Fight Club,
Also
yes.
a true story.
Yep.
Fury. Step Brothers, Tombstone, Big Daddy, Forrest Gump, True Grit, Good to Bad and Ugly, Dazed and Confused, Rambo. But the poster I got for Rambo is his damn mugshot.
That's a good one.
He's holding up his name, John Rambo.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's Sylvester Stallone looking hard AF, like into the camera, like a mugshot.
Yeah.
The Book of Eli.
Another incredible movie.
Denzel. Yeah. I Am Legend. Gran Torino. That sacrifice at the end, man. Sorry to give it away, people. I don't care, but I love those. Like freaking Armageddon. Oh
Yeah.
My gosh, I gotta get Armageddon.
Armageddon.
I
I get choked up when he goes, "Tell yourself," and he's like, "You give this to whatever his name is." Gives him the patch. He's like, "I love you, AJ." Ben Affleck's got me in tears. Put Good Will Hunting on that list too.
Good Will Hunting's a good
Good Will
one.
Hunting's so incredible.
Cole doesn't like it because he thinks it's weird to write a movie and then you play the lead role in it, where Matt Damon, like, he wrote it.
I understand it, but
and then the way he explains it is like, all right, it's a janitor, but he's crazy smart.
Yeah.
And then it's like, all right, who's gonna play it? Me.
yeah, no.
But
He's like doing equations on the wall, and yeah.
Right. Then Rocky, Black Hawk Down,
Mm-hmm.
Suits. You seen that show?
Yeah, I haven't got into it though.
You got to just stay with it. That's
Okay.
That's a badass show about loyalty. Cheers.
Love Cheers.
Yeah. It's a Wonderful Life. That one's for my mom. Pretty Woman. Love Julia Roberts. The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. It's another John Wayne movie.
Okay.
So I really like The Blacklist. That's another show you should watch.
Oh, with
FBI show.
What's his name?
Yeah, I can't remember.
He's
Raymond Reddington is
Yeah,
his
yeah,
name in the
Reddington.
show.
Yeah, he's also. I just love the way he talks.
I like them shows about loyalty, like Suits and Blacklist.
I get that.
Yeah. So anyways, isn't that going to be a cool wall? But they're
No,
all scenes from the movies.
It's gonna be incredible to have something like that. I like that. You're really good at pulling people into a scene yourself, right?
you.
That's what I've gathered a lot from my time here. Just the way you talk about, the freshly drug rodeo, like
could you smell it?
I can. No, I can. And so like that, it makes so much sense to me now how successful you are with content creation, because that's really what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're trying to get someone to buy into something that 9 times out of 10 they don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
And so when you can pull them into the world of rodeo and stuff, and it's been so successful that you ran up the side of the mountain with the king of mountain running,
Yeah.
Cameron Haynes,
Yeah, that was cool.
right?
Yeah.
What's that whole day like? That whole 24 hours,
Dude, I woke up, I was so nervous.
right?
And so, small backstory.
Go ahead.
The year before, so that was in February. The prior February is when I went on Marcus Luttrell's podcast.
Yes, I remember it.
So I started reading all these. That's when it really kicked off me reading all the books from GWAT, because I wanted to make sure I'd read his book. I'd seen the movie, but I needed to read the book. So I read his 2 books, I think, and I would alternate with like a Christian book. And so it was like war book, C.S. Lewis book,
Yeah,
like Mere Christianity. Love it.
Written by Christian himself. And was he in the war?
Yeah. I think it was World War One or
Yes.
2. I think it was 1.
I think it was one. Him and
But he's from
Tolkien,
overseas. Yeah, Tolkien.
They were both in. I mean,
Yeah, they were buddies.
Yeah. What is it? I mean, Winnie the Pooh's, what's his name, was a war veteran as well, I believe.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
all like in hiding in plain sight
Yeah,
a little
100%. That's cool. So then, it was like American Sniper.
bit. Mm-hmm.
I read just you name it. The Goggins book. I read Tim Kennedy's book,
Mm-hmm.
both the Dakota Myers books, both of Rob O'Neill's books, like literally like almost 15 books from your guys's. So
I think that it's just getting started, by the way.
yeah,
Like that whole era is like, now that it's come to a close, there's going to be
For
this whole, like a decade.
So anyways, I start reading and I read Cameron Haynes' book, and I kind of fall back into running a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm listening. Sometimes I'm doing audiobooks, sometimes I'm reading hard copies.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the freaking Roberts Ridge. You remember back in like 2002, there was Chapman, the Medal of Honor.
Mark Chapman, the Air Force guy.
Yeah, the combat
Yes.
controller.
Yes, combat controller, and he got the
And
Medal of Honor.
There's 2 books from that.
That's
Dude,
awesome.
that's a wild ass story.
Yeah.
And so I would read stuff like that, and I'm like, and I would listen to some of them on jogs. Well, you listen to these some bucks that are like, and yourself
Mhm.
going through the stuff y'all are going through. All right, I might can last another mile or 2,
Yeah.
So from that year, I ran every day, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 miles a day. And it was great because I'm listening to all these guys that are like literally giving their lives. The least I could do is go on this jog to listen to the book.
Yeah.
And, well, about the time that I go to Cam's, Cam, like, sees me on social media, is like, hey, come up and do a lift, run, shoot with me. And what you do is you lift weights with him, you run on this mountain, Mount Pisgah up in Eugene, Oregon, then you shoot a bow. And then you go on his podcast. And I'm
How
like,
much time after?
Hell yeah. How much what?
How much time after the lift, run, and shoot? How much time, and then you go do the podcast?
We did it, I think, the next day or maybe that afternoon. So I had several hours to recoup.
Still a lot,
But
because this is so different than everything else, and you're like, okay, yeah,
well, I had been running harder than I had my whole life for
Yeah.
a year prior. And about the month before I get to Cam's, I start getting this like crippling pain
mm-hmm.
in my hips, my back, my legs, Turns out I have this early onset arthritis from rodeoing that this running, all this running has sped up. So I go to this mountain, and I never told Cam this. I still really haven't told anybody, but I go to this mountain. We run 12 miles up this mountain, part of it holding a 75-pound rock, and it's like the most pain I'd been in running ever. And I'm just barely making it, but I'm not going to tell Cameron Haynes. He runs one time he ran 240 miles.
Yeah.
I'm not going to complain about a 12-miler.
You're going to hold that to yourself.
Yeah. And needless to say, it was one of the hardest things I've done. Second.
Yeah.
The top 5, and then Tim Kennedy's workouts are in there, sitting at number 2 and 4.
Yeah, his rhabdo workouts.
Yeah, that's what they are.
Yeah.
Get ready to get rhabdo.
Yeah, it's just like, all right, we're going to do 1,200, wall slams.
The morning I went on Joe Rogan,
Yeah.
Tim was like, come to the deal, and we did one of those workouts.
No.
2 hours later, I'm at Joe Rogan's.
No.
Yeah, that's what I should have told him.
Yeah, no, Tim. I'm doing cowboy stuff, just like whatever you can.
But anyway, Cam took it easy on me. It was a day off for him, literally, like it was like a slow day. And but yeah, whenever he had me shooting a bow after our run, I was literally going in the bathroom throwing up.
Yeah,
because I felt like I was gonna die.
Well, and you punched through it, and then that's what led you down the path of getting onto Joe Rogan, right? Because that put you in his atmosphere, correct?
Yeah, they're buddies, really tight,
very well known. Yeah,
and yeah. So that weekend, after that, all that content started coming out. Joe followed me, which I noticed, and was.
It's weird when you get those. Oh, nice,
dude! It was surreal.
Yeah,
and I was like, no way.
Yeah,
and then it was even more surreal. Fast forward to September, I harvested an elk and got on his radar even more, and I got that DM. And it's actually like he told me a date, and it's the one day out of the year that I have this booth where we make the most money out of any other day in the entire year. And but I mean, I didn't hesitate. I never even mentioned that to him.
Yeah,
and
you seized the moment.
I was talking to Cerrone, Cowboy, the UFC fighter who knows Joe like personally, and he was like, dude, just tell him, he'll change it. And I was like, and then my other buddy was like, he's a nice guy, of course he'll change it, but what if he's like, yeah, we'll do it in the spring, and then what if it never happens?
I say take the date.
And so that's what I did.
Yeah.
I never
I mean, of course, yeah, it's what you did, but I like to say, this is something I was telling your team out there. I was like, Dale Brisby walked on Joe Rogan so Taylor Sheridan could run. Right?
Yeah. I did talk about Taylor.
If Dale Brisby wasn't there, Taylor who is what they say. Yeah. He's got some TV shows allegedly.
Right.
Yeah. Whatever.
No, it was cool. So Taylor, I go to the 4-6s a couple times a year. Like those buddies I mentioned, one of them manages one of the 4-6s. There's 2 places, Guthrie and Dixon Creek, and my buddy manages Dixon Creek. And anyhow, I ran into Taylor a few times. Actually, I was on Yellowstone a brief moment.
Yeah.
And my fan base was like, oh my gosh, Dale's on Yellowstone. And it was like this big deal. But like Taylor wasn't there that day. The production crew had no idea who I was.
Yeah.
I just happened to be actually working because we were actually working cows. It wasn't like we didn't stage it all. Like we were weaning that day in a pasture called Big River. And Jimmy was there. Got to meet him. Super nice guy. And so like for all the production crew knew, like I was just another guy, a day worker.
Yeah, another ranch hand.
Which I am. I'm not saying I'm any, but
they had no idea.
Unbeknownst to them later on, like, and then I saw Taylor a couple months later at a ranch rodeo, and he was like, "Man, your fans loved that you're on Yellowstone." But it was funny that everybody thought it was like this scheduled cameo. It just was just this random thing that happened to be in the background.
Yeah, just you doing the work. And I mean, Taylor owes you. Otherwise, I don't think Joe would have had him on. I mean, yeah, Yellowstone, 1883. I mean, who knows if those are going to be successful long term.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I did get to talk about Taylor on the show, on Joe's deal. And I think he had been wanting him on there for a while and finally got him on. But Sicario. Yeah. I got to get that one.
No, that's a good one. He's one of my favorite storytellers. He also has a Wind River. That's a really good one.
That is a good one.
and it's he also wrote, I believe he was the head writer on Sons of Anarchy, which is one of my favorite shows, which is based off of Hamlet, actually. I don't know if he was the head writer. I know he was a writer on there.
Yeah.
But that whole, I mean, like, there's just not a lot of great storytellers left.
Yeah. He's got another one, Mayor of Kingstown.
Yeah.
I've watched a little bit of it.
I'm sure it's incredible.
Yeah. And
He uses violence in a good way, is how I would describe
Well,
it.
he tries to tell a story he does tell a story about what it is. He tries not to like put an underlying message of what it should be.
Which is
So
rare.
like, that's what he does with 1883, with Yellowstone, with, you know, he'll talk about things that are going on in the industry, but he tries not to like have a biased thing towards it. You know, like there'll be both sides of the coin. And so however good or bad it may look, and that's what he tries to build the story around, which is respectful. You know, like I think that's a good thing.
Like, it would have been weird if all of a sudden in Yellowstone, when people were filming with masks, that he put masks on all of the characters in the show.
Right, no kidding.
Like, because that was like the weirdest time in Hollywood when like everyone like included real life stuff into the fake world. That was
so dumb.
It's so dumb.
That's one thing I didn't like about that movie Blacklist. They had one episode in there where it was like they animated the second half because it was right during COVID, and it's just like, this is bullshit. Like, whatever.
Which
it's all these actors saying like, we're in this together. Like, shut up. No, you're not.
Yeah. No,
Shut
we're
up.
not. We're good. Stop. We don't need that.
Stop causing all this.
It's just, I don't know. It's a thing I think about that they're going to look back and be like, what were they? Why were they doing that? This is a show called La Brea. It's about a portal in the La Brea tar pits. Why? What? Now they have a mask too? Like, they have too many enemies. They're not really telling stories.
Yeah.
And it's just they do things to just, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
No kidding.
But what does make sense to me is rodeo time and what you're doing with it. I've always said I'll never leave the South, and I haven't found a part of Texas that I feel like is me until I came here.
There you go.
And I mean that. I mean that
No,
earnestly.
I appreciate it.
Like, I always say my heart longs for a slower pace of life, and it really, really does.
Yeah.
But I'm in a place now where I'm building towards doing certain things that'll set me up and my family up. And then, like, once my kids graduate, I'm going to, like, break my phone and start over. And I'll text you and be like, my number's 7 now.
There you go.
Like, that'll be it. Like, I'm just going to, I want to pop smoke, and I'll just wear overalls every day, and that'll be it. Like, it's just,
come on, old son.
dude, I'll be like, I'm here to intern.
Yeah.
You know, and start over.
That's how they show up.
I'm looking forward to it. But
Yeah.
as we're wrapping up, and again, thank you so much to everyone, for you and your team. You've been beyond gracious. This has been one of the coolest moments I've ever had. But what is something that you want people to take away about Dale Brisby in the rodeo time world? What is something?
Well, I mean, the number one thing for me is my faith, you know, like my walk with Christ and, you know, like his trying to be a reflection of his love and humility. But other than that, like, I want to bring, you know, not outside of him, but I want to bring light to a dark world, you know, and the darker the world gets, the brighter that the light will shine, you know, when it's turned on. The darker a room is, you know, when I was a kid, my dad and I were, I'm not sure why he was sleeping in mine and my brother's room that night, but my brother wasn't there. It was just me and him. Oh, I remember why, because it got so dark in there, and we didn't have windows in that room, and we had bunk beds, and so he came in there and he was sleeping in there. But I do remember the part where the VCR had this blinking light, and after about being in that room for 5 minutes, he had to go put a towel over the blinking light because it was so dark in there. That little bitty pin-sized light was like a spotlight, you know, in that room. And however dark this world gets, if you can be a light in it, then you can be that much brighter. And so that's essentially what I'd like to share with the world, be an ambassador for my faith, for the rodeo industry, and just be funny and fun. And so long as I'm interesting, they'll be interested.
Well, you're doing it, and I couldn't think of a better way to end this. Thank you so much.
You bet.
For being on this. Thank you for having me on Rodeo Time.
No worries.
Everyone follow Dale Brisby on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Rodeo Time.
Rodeotime.com.
Rodeotime.com. And thank you for joining me on this episode, this very special episode of the After Action Podcast.
Pow pow.
Pow pow.